Hello, and welcome to the Mommy Escape Time podcast. I am Lauren, your host, and I have a 1-year-old son. I started this podcast for any mother who might feel alone in their journey through motherhood. Becoming a mom is hard no matter how you get there, and this podcast is about the mom stuff that comes up in our lives. Listen, enjoy, and connect with us on the Mommy Escape Time podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Mommy Escape Time podcast. I am Lauren, your host, and today's episode is, I kind of got this idea because I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking about this website called Common Sense Media, and I had never heard of it before, and it's kind of this website where people rank whether or not they think I guess it's bunches of people that do it, but all these people that rank to see the different types of media that are out there and what age your child should be when they access this type of media. Now, I haven't extensively gone through it, but I kind of thought about it because over this quarantine time, we have really been watching more TV or maybe getting into more TV. And maybe it's not necessarily just the quarantine, but ever since Disney Plus came out, we have been allowing our child to watch a little more TV than maybe normal. And part of that reason is that there were sometimes during quarantine when I needed to take phone calls or things like that. And we did 30 minutes a day at the end of the day. And that was it. And now we do a little bit before nap and a little bit before we go to bed. So it's about an hour, depending on the day, or an hour and a half total in the day that we let my son watch TV. And it's funny because when you think about Disney and Disney movies, I always think of them as oh, these are great, no problem. And, we can watch them and it's no problem. And there's been so many times where I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? So I have some ideas from Disney Plus that maybe are some good ideas. My son is 2. Many people have pointed out in the intro that it says that my son is 1. I hopefully one day we'll get to change that intro to 2. It actually is a lot of work to change it, so that's why I am not changing it right now. But hopefully one of these days I am. I just I've just barely been able to get these podcasts up on time because it's been so different and our lifestyle is so different that I just haven't been able to arrange my schedule so I can consistently do podcasts. And so today I'm actually doing, when I record this, I am doing a bunch of podcasts all in a row I'm recording. And then I am working on trying to get 2 or 3 people to record some podcasts also with me, but those probably will not come out until August. So and August is next week, but probably not for definitely not for 3 more weeks will I be able to get those up. So we'll see. I'm taking it week by week, day by day right now, just trying to see what I can do. So, but today, so I'm going to start with some ideas that I have for Disney Plus that have been working for my son. There are a lot of Disney Junior shows. There's a whole section in Disney Plus on Disney Junior shows. My son doesn't really watch Disney Junior, because, except for Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. So, I would say any of those Mickey shows are pretty good. And then I don't know what the official name is called, but it's Puppy Pals. My son also, who's 2, he does like that. And I like those shows because they're short. So I could be okay, you get to watch one show and then you could turn off the TV. When we put on movies, it's sometimes a little harder. But we have this timer. How do I explain it? It's a visual timer. So, and it's up to an hour. And so it's red when you have the red part. It'll be on Instagram. What can I say? There's no other way to describe it. The color red decreases as there's less time going on, and instead of numbers where like 5, 10, 15, 20 go, there are animals, so that my son can figure out how much time is left if we need to. So when I first started watching Disney Plus, I would just go with my son. I would just find the songs in that he knew in the movies, and we would go and watch those. And that's how I started watching so-called movies with him. And then as he got a little more mature, I was able to have him actually physically watch parts of movies. And it got a little hard because I have not seen a lot of the new movies. So, like, we started with Moana because that was absolutely my son's favorite. He just loved Moana. So, we would go and watch Moana every single day, parts of it. And he really liked it. But there are some really scary parts. So there at the very beginning there are some scary parts, and then towards the end there are scary parts. So what I had been doing is just fast forwarding scary parts. And it's so funny because I never thought about doing that. Um, I remember when I was younger and I was a child that in Dirty Dancing there were certain scenes that family members would fast forward so I could still watch the movie. Not that I understood what those more mature scenes were anyways, but um they it's so funny now to do it with my son, and it's more for like the scary parts that I do that for. So I would say I really like Moana. I think that that's like one of those good Disney movies with a good message and all those things. So I really like that. I think the animation is like amazing for someone who has curly hair. It's like amazing that they have two main characters that have like curly wavy hair, and how they get it to move just right, and it's so amazing. So I that's one of my favorites, and I fast forward and my son does not really care, but there are some scary parts in that. I'm sure everyone has heard me talk about this, but the second thing that we always, always, always watch is Frozen. Frozen 1 and Frozen 2. I would say Frozen 2 is more my son's favorite, it is also my favorite. Maybe that's why he likes it so much. But Frozen 2 was actually the first movie he saw from start to finish watching it. And he was mesmerized with Frozen 2. And we started that right like a week or two into our pandemic. We started watching it, and we watched it every day from the end of March until I would say the beginning of May. So I no, actually the middle of May. And finally, my husband got him onto something else. And I don't think there's anything that I fast forward through in Frozen 2. Um, I think there are sadder parts, but I think that Disney handles it much better than some other movies that I had anticipated. Um, so that's kind of nice that he really likes Frozen, and I'm trying to even think. I mean, it's not great in Frozen 1. There's one part with Anna and this guy that she thinks she's in love with. Um, there's like one part near the end that's not so great, but nothing too alarming. But sometimes, we just skip certain parts of the movie. But one of the other things that my son really got into was Toy Story. And I definitely can say that Toy Story can be very intense. There are, in Toys, I think the second Toy Story is probably the safest one to watch. Toy Story 1, there is a scary neighbor boy that like lights toys on fire and all this stuff. So that can be very traumatic. I think the second one is also pretty good. Again, it could be a little traumatic because the toys do get separated at some point. I will say that Toy Stories 3 and 4 are more dramatic. There is in Toy Story 3, I was like in utter shock, like scenes that they put in there. So I would be more mindful of Toy Story 3. I don't think Toy Story 4 is. I think Toy Story 4 is safer. I will say Toy Story 3 and 4 are heart pulling on your heartstrings as a parent. So it's hard as a parent, especially to watch it over and over and over again. Um, but yeah, I would say Toy Story 2 and 4 are probably your safest bets. I think 4 is probably the sweetest story. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that one. I don't know if it'll make sense if you haven't seen the other ones, because I've seen them so many times, but you can always try it. Um, Something my husband got my son into was called The Good Dinosaur, and that was pretty good. There are some scary parts that's very similar to Lion King, storyline wise. So that can become a big issue because we have watched Lion King once all the way through with my son. And my son just loves the animals, and I know he doesn't understand the storyline of the Lion King, but there's a big focus on in the Lion King about the father and the what happens with the father in the movie, and I just can't take it anymore. So I just can't watch that anymore. So but I think The Good Dinosaur does a much better job of it, and The Good Dinosaur I think is definitely for more mature children. My child thinks it's great. There are just certain parts that he just loves more, and he likes it, so we let him watch it, and he doesn't get scared easily, so that's good. Um, Cars. We also got my son into Cars. We watched all three. I think there's only three Cars movies. Maybe there's four, but we watched all three Cars movies. I would say the first one is like great. It's like family friendly at all times. So I don't see anything. I don't see any issues with that one. I think that that's a great one for families and kids of any ages. I would say Toy Story 2 is much more intense. Um, it's like a spy movie, and it's definitely much more intense. I don't really remember watching Toy Story 3, but I don't remember it being as intense as I'm sorry. I don't remember if Cars 3 at all, but I can't remember it being that intense. So, and recently, my cousin had recommended the Pirate Fairy movie, and it's about Tinkerbell and some other fairies, and it's kind of like pre Peter Pan time. And it's really, really cute, and my son loves it. We've been watching it for a few days now in a row, and he totally loves it. And it's great, and I think he just likes it because he's really into butterflies right now, and so he likes anything that's flying around. So um, and I would say I don't think there are any scary parts in that movie. Um, but of course, every child is different, so you never know. So that's why I like this website, Common Sense Media, that you could kind of check out and see. There are like reviews that people leave and stuff like that. So all that stuff you can check out on the website, and it's great. And then although I will say they don't start till age 5 because apparently your kid should not be watching TV until they're at age 5. So just letting you know. Um, so there are some scarier movies, and I didn't even like really realize it until I was watching it. So I'm not going to go through all of them. There are just a few of them though that I will go through. One of the major ones that I was kind of disappointed about is Tangled because that is like my all-time favorite Disney movie. And I went to go watch it with my son, and it's way too scary for him. The mother in the episodes is just way too scary. He's like, even my son is like afraid of the mother in that episode, in that movie. So we've watched parts of it, but I fast forwarded so much of the movie that I was like, what are we even watching here? I'm like, there's no storyline here that he can follow. So I didn't, we just ended up stopping watching that movie. And I feel like he's going to have to be much, much older. I would say like 8 or 9 in order to watch that movie. It just seemed very intense. So that's one that we're definitely waiting for a while on. One of the other ones that I had never seen, so of course, why not just watch it with your child without even watching it beforehand? Was The Incredibles. And I guess I sort of thought about it a little bit. I think it was one that I saw that was PG, and I was like, oh gosh, what's going to be wrong here? Um, but it's a little more violent than I had anticipated. My son was enthralled the whole time, but it was definitely more violent than I had anticipated it to be. Um, so we haven't seen Incredibles 2. I don't even know if it's available on Disney Plus yet, but it's definitely not one that we will watch again for a long time because it's just a little more intense for my husband. For my husband. Yeah, my husband can't handle the movie. My son. As you can tell, I'm having a little bit of an off day with my words, but I'm trying. Um, and I kind of talked about this already, but The Lion King, I also think, depending on your child's maturity and whatnot, I think it's a little intense. I think the father son relationship is a big focus. I think Scar, the uncle, is a big focus. And I think a lot of it is scary. Um, so again, I think that one is actually PG also, but I could be wrong. But that is one that we've tried to, move on from. It's hard because my son loves the music from it so much, and so um, not as much of a big fan of that. And then Aladdin. I really wanted my son to watch Aladdin, and there was like just so much that I had to fast forward through. And I never thought about it before because I think when those like 90s movies came out, I was like 8 or 9. So it wasn't as scary. And I saw these movies in the movie theater when they came out. So it wasn't a big deal. I'm going to try and really stop saying so for the rest of this episode, but we'll see if it happens. And so with Aladdin, oh, there we go. Yeah, right away, say it. Aladdin, the very beginning is very intense. When they're trying to find the lamp, it's also very intense. And leave when Aladdin gets left in the cave, it can be very intense also. So I I'm just it's so different watching all these movies as a parent through the eyes of a child. And this last category is maybe, you know, it's maybe subtle hints that you don't want your child to be watching as much, or I don't like to focus on them. I don't really focus on like the early Disney stuff, like Peter Pan or Cinderella or Sleeping Beauty or any of those movies, or even the Little Mermaid. And it's not that there's anything wrong with these movies. It's just that the focus for the women is find a husband, or you will get a husband, and that is how, or find a man, and that is how your life will become happy and full again. But until then, your life is not happy and full again. And it's often that you have a horrible life, and then you meet this guy, and then life is great. And I guess I don't want those subtle hints out there, or that these are the jobs for women, these are the jobs for men. And I it's not a big deal if my child watches it, of course, but it's just not the kind of role models I want my child to be looking at and maybe thinking that this is the way the world has to be, because I don't want him to have that. Oh, one of the other ones that he is afraid of is Princess and the Frog. And I had it written down and I forgot because we just started watching it a few weeks ago. I really wanted to watch it, and it started off so good in that I hate my son. There are just very specific parts with, let's say, ghosts, and my child is not a fan of that. So I'm so mad because I was like so into that movie, and I think about it now because I'm talking about girls and how this is totally different. Princess and the Frog is an example of, like work hard, work hard. You'll have to give up this, you'll have to give up that. But if you work hard, you can get X eventually, or whatever you're working towards. And so that is the kind of role model that I want my child to see. But it's still too scary for him to watch. So I'm not going to just make him watch it because I think it's a good role model movie. But he like loves the music from that, from Princess and the Frog. So I'm definitely excited about that. So hopefully someday. So, anyways, I just wanted to have you see some Common Sense Media. If you want to check that out, Common Sense Media. They do more than just movies. They do TV shows. I want to say they do apps and everything. So any media source, I think that they rank it age-wise and parent, and you can kind of read a description of what would make it for that age level, also. So I would check that out. I heard that on another podcast. That's how I heard about it. So you might want to check it out instead of, watching these movies with your child beforehand and figuring out during it that you have to start fast forwarding different things. So, all right, this isn't going to be that long of an episode, but I hope you enjoyed it, and check out Common Sense Media if I haven't said it enough so you can try and remember it. And follow me along on Instagram if you want. I post very infrequently, but when I do post, people seem to really enjoy it. So I hope that you all have a good week and stay safe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.